Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your entire life has been carefully designed. Not by you, for you. Every belief you hold about success, every desire you feel toward a certain kind of life, every fear that stops you from walking away from things that drain you. What if none of it originated with you? What if the life you are living was handed to you so gradually, so seamlessly, that by the time you were old enough to question it, you had already forgotten there was anything to question? Here's the part that should stop you cold. The most effective prisons in human history have not been built from iron. They have been built from belief, from routine, from the quiet, daily repetition of a life you accepted without ever fully choosing. And the people inside them do not pace the walls. They go to work, they scroll through their phones, they make plans for the weekend. They tell themselves they are fine. Most of them will never see it. But something brought you here today. Some friction between the life you are living and the life you can feel somewhere underneath everything that you were supposed to be living. That friction is not a flaw. It is the most important signal you have ever received. Today, we are going to follow it, all the way down. Through the systems, the conditioning, the debt, the distraction, the emotions, to the single truth that sits beneath all of it. The truth that most people spend their entire lives successfully avoiding. By the end of this, you will not see your life the same way. And that is not a promise of comfort. It is a promise of something far more valuable. Clarity. Let's begin. Part 1. The slavery that looks like normal life. We are told that slavery ended, that chains were broken, that humanity evolved, that we now live in an age of freedom, of choice, of unprecedented opportunity. And on the surface, that narrative is convincing. No one is forcing you to do anything. You have options, you have rights, you have access to more information than any generation in history. And yet, the philosopher Michel Foucault spent his career examining how power works in modern societies. And what he found was this: the most sophisticated forms of control do not operate through force. They operate through structure, through the invisible architecture of daily life that shapes your behavior so completely that you eventually stop noticing it is shaping you at all. Schedules you did not design, deadlines set by institutions you never chose, goals that were handed to you before you were old enough to know what you actually wanted. A rhythm of life, wake, work, consume, sleep, repeat, that was running before you arrived and will continue after you leave, unchanged by your brief participation in it. Foucault called this disciplinary society, a world in which the primary mechanism of control is not the threat of punishment, but the internalization of norms. You do not need a guard if the prisoner has learned to guard themselves, and that is the question that should keep you up at night. Who designed the norms you are following? Whose definition of success are you chasing? Whose timeline are you running on? Karl Marx called it alienation, the condition of becoming disconnected from your own essence because your life is no longer truly yours. You sell your time, you sell your energy, you sell your creativity and your presence and your best hours to a system that was never designed with your flourishing in mind. And eventually, if you are not careful, you begin to sell your identity. You begin to define yourself by your function in the machine, rather than by anything that is genuinely yours. Modern slavery does not look like oppression. It looks like a job that pays just enough to keep you dependent. A lifestyle you must maintain even if it costs your peace. A social identity built on standards you never agreed to, but have been measuring yourself against for so long, they feel like truth. The brilliance of this system, if you can call it that, is that it requires no conspiracy, no hidden counsel, no malevolent architect pulling strings in the dark. It sustains itself through repetition, through the sheer weight of everyone around you doing the same thing and calling it normal. But here's the crack in the foundation. The moment you begin to question, the moment you look at the structure and ask who built this and why, the whole thing begins to lose its grip. Which is exactly why, as we will see, everything around you is designed to prevent that question from arising. Part 2. The path that was laid before you were born. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote 2.5 centuries ago, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. The chains have changed, but the structure has not. From the moment you entered this world, a path was laid out. Go to school, follow instructions, get good grades, earn approval, find a stable job, work hard, consume, repeat. And if you follow the path, if you conform, perform, and produce on schedule, you are rewarded with the currency of belonging. Praise, acceptance, the comfortable sense that you are doing it right. If you deviate, if you question the path, resist the timeline, or pursue something that falls outside the approved categories, you are not punished openly, you are simply made to feel wrong, irresponsible, naive, a little dangerous maybe, to the people around you who have too much invested in their own conformity to tolerate your deviation from it. This is what Friedrich Nietzsche called the herd mentality, the condition in which individuals stop generating their own values and begin absorbing the values of the majority. Not through reason or genuine choice, but through the primal need to belong. Because belonging feels safe, and safety, as we will examine later, is one of the most powerful tools of control ever discovered. Think carefully about the goals you are currently working toward. How many of them did you arrive at through genuine reflection, through sitting with yourself long enough to understand what you actually want from your one life? And how many of them were installed through comparison? Through the accumulation of images, messages, and social signals telling you what a successful person looks like, what a good life contains, what you should want. Because here is what no one tells you when you are young enough for it to matter. You are not discovering who you are. You are being shown who to be. And the showing is so consistent, so pervasive, so entirely normalized that by the time you reach adulthood, the performance and the performer have merged. You have stopped being able to tell the difference between what you genuinely desire and what you were trained to desire. Carl Jung believed that the greatest tragedy is not a life of suffering. It is a life unlived. A life spent performing a version of yourself that was assembled from other people's expectations rather than excavated from your own depths. And that, the unlived life, is what this system ultimately produces. Not broken people, not visibly oppressed people, people who are functioning perfectly within a framework that was never designed around their flourishing. People who are, in Thoreau's precise phrase, living lives of quiet desperation and calling it fine. The question is not whether this is happening to you. The question is how deeply it is already gone. Part 3. The chain that looks like progress. Of all the mechanisms that sustain the invisible structure, one is more effective than any other. Not because it is the most violent, because it is the most personal. Debt. The philosopher and anthropologist David Graeber spent years studying the history of debt across human civilizations, and what he found, consistently, across thousands of years and dozens of cultures, is that debt is not primarily a financial instrument, it is a moral one. It does not just take your money, it takes your freedom to choose, and makes you feel that the loss of that freedom is your own fault. Think about the architecture of modern life through this lens. You are encouraged, actively, constantly, through advertising and culture and the visible lives of your peers, to desire more than you need. A bigger home, a newer car, a lifestyle at a level that requires ongoing financial maintenance, and to sustain this, you borrow. At first, the borrowing feels like progress, like arrival, like finally having what you were supposed to have. But underneath it, something else is happening. The moment you take on significant debt, your relationship to choice changes fundamentally. Suddenly, the options available to you are not determined by what you want. They are determined by what you owe. You cannot leave the job that is draining you because you need the salary. You cannot take the risk that excites you because you cannot afford to fail. You cannot choose the slower, more meaningful path because the faster, more lucrative one is no longer optional. The debt does not chain you. It simply makes the chain feel like your own responsibility. And the philosopher Erich Fromm described the deeper psychological cost of this arrangement. He called it the shift from being to having, the gradual replacement of a life defined by who you are with a life defined by what you own. And the more you own, the more you are owned. Because every possession carries an obligation to maintain it, to protect it, to justify it. And every obligation is a piece of your freedom that now belongs to something outside yourself. But here is the part that reveals how deeply the system has worked. When you try to describe this to most people, when you point at the structure and name it, they defend it. This is just how the world works. Everyone has to pay their dues. There is no other way. And they say this not because they have examined the alternatives and found them wanting. They say it because the belief was installed so long ago and reinforced so consistently that it has become invisible. It is no longer a belief. It is reality. That is the point at which control becomes complete, not when people are forced to comply, when they are convinced that compliance is wisdom. Part 4. The mind that controls itself. We have talked about external systems, the structures, the expectations, the debt. But there is a layer of control more powerful than any of these, because it does not operate from outside you. It operates as you. The psychologist B.F. Skinner demonstrated something that should disturb you deeply. Human behavior can be shaped through consistent patterns of reinforcement until those behaviors become automatic, until the person is no longer responding to the external reward at all, but simply continuing the pattern because the pattern is now who they are. You were rewarded from your earliest years for certain behaviors, for sitting still, for following instructions, for producing the expected answers, for fitting within the boundaries of what was considered appropriate for someone like you. And you were discouraged, not always harshly, but consistently, from the behaviors that lay outside those boundaries, from questioning too deeply, from wanting too differently, from moving in directions that made the people around you uncomfortable. And over enough time, the external apparatus became unnecessary because you had internalized it. You began doing the system's work yourself, doubting your own instincts before anyone else could doubt them, silencing your own unusual ideas before they could attract criticism, editing yourself, constantly, reflexively, invisibly, to remain within the range of what felt safe and acceptable. Noam Chomsky called this manufactured consent, the process by which people come to accept and even advocate for conditions that limit them, not through force or deception, but through the sustained control of the information and narratives available to them. You are not just consuming media. The media is consuming you, shaping your sense of what is realistic, what is possible, what people like you do and do not do. And here is the line from Jung that should stop you completely. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Read that again. The thoughts that feel most like you, the assumptions so deep you have never thought to examine them, the limits so familiar they feel like reality rather than belief, these are not you. They are the accumulated sediment of everything that was poured into you before you had the capacity to filter it. They are running your life, and you are calling it choice. The gap between stimulus and response, that fraction of a second where genuine choice lives, has been narrowed to nothing by years of conditioning. You react, you follow the pattern, you repeat the behavior, and you experience all of it as freedom because there is no one visibly forcing you to do any of it. This is how the invisible prison achieves its final form, not through bars, through beliefs. And the most fortified beliefs are the ones you have never once thought to question. Part 5. The distraction that keeps you from yourself. Blaise Pascal, writing in the 17th century, made an observation that feels as though it was written yesterday. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Think about that. Not as philosophy, as your actual daily experience. When was the last time you sat in genuine silence? No phone, no music, no podcast, no background noise, and simply allowed your mind to be where it was? When did you last let a thought arise, follow it wherever it wanted to go, and stay with it long enough for something real to surface? For most people, the honest answer is, I cannot remember. And that is not an accident. The philosopher Herbert Marcuse described modern consumer society as a system that generates false needs, desires that keep individuals perpetually consuming and perpetually distracted rather than aware and genuinely fulfilled. You feel the pull to check your phone not because something important is happening, but because the habit has been reinforced thousands of times until the reaching is as automatic as breathing. Your attention has been captured. And your attention in the modern world is the most valuable thing you possess. Not to you, to the systems competing for it. Because here is what silence does that stimulation cannot allow. Silence produces reflection, and reflection produces questions. And questions, the real ones, the ones that arise when the noise finally stops, are the beginning of everything the system depends on you never asking. Am I living the life I actually want? Is the discomfort I feel every morning telling me something I have been too busy to hear? What would I choose if I stopped choosing from fear? These questions do not arise in the scroll. They do not surface during the binge or the noise or the endless stream of content that promises to inform and entertain, but consistently delivers something closer to sedation. They arise in the silence, which is precisely why silence has become the rarest and most radical act available to you. Distraction is not your enemy because it wastes your time. It is your enemy because it keeps you from discovering that you are already capable of something different. Every moment your attention is captured outward is a moment you are not present to your own life, not living it, running through it. Part 6. The truth behind all of it. Now everything converges. The system, the conditioning, the debt, the distraction, the emotional architecture. All of it points toward a single, central truth that most people spend their entire lives successfully avoiding. You have been taught how to function, but not how to live. The philosopher Immanuel Kant described enlightenment as the moment a person dares to think for themselves, not occasionally when it is convenient, consistently. As a practice and a commitment. Because thinking for yourself is not just an intellectual act, it is the fundamental act of freedom. And it is far more difficult than it sounds, because it requires you to hold your own beliefs up to the light and ask, honestly, which of them you actually chose. Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps. He lost everything that could be taken: his home, his family, his freedom of movement. And in the worst conditions human beings have ever documented, he discovered something that should permanently alter how you understand freedom. The last of the human freedoms, he wrote, is the ability to choose your response to any given circumstance. Think about what that means. Even in the most controlled environments in history, something remained that could not be taken: the interior life, the capacity to choose your orientation toward what is happening to you. And Frankl observed that the people who retained this interior freedom, who continued to find meaning even within suffering, were the ones who remained most fully human, most fully themselves. Which tells us something profound about the system we have been examining. It can shape your schedule, it can colonize your attention, it can structure your options and condition your beliefs and anchor you in debt and distract you with noise. But it cannot reach the final thing. It cannot tell you who you are underneath all of it. It cannot choose your values for you, or determine what you find meaningful, or decide whether you live deliberately or automatically. Those remain yours, always, even when everything else has been taken. And that is where real freedom begins, not in the dramatic dismantling of external structures, though awareness of those structures matters, but in the daily, unglamorous, entirely personal decision to be present to your own life, to notice when you are reacting versus choosing, to ask the question most people are too distracted to hear: what do I actually want? Not what have you been told to want. Not what does someone who looks like you in a successful version of their life pursue. What do you, the person who was here before the conditioning began and will still be here when the noise finally stops, actually want? That question is where everything begins. No system can fully control someone who is aware. This is the truth that every structure built on unconscious compliance depends on you never discovering. Because awareness breaks the illusion. It creates space between stimulus and response. It reveals the architecture. And in that revealed architecture, you find what was always there, but was buried under so much noise and habit and fear that you had stopped believing it existed. Choice. Real choice. The ability to look at your life, not the life you inherited, not the life you were trained toward, not the life that makes you legible to the systems around you, but your actual life, in its actual dimensions, and decide what it is for. You do not have to dismantle everything overnight. You do not have to blow up your existence to begin to reclaim it. You only have to do one thing: stop and notice. Notice when you are reaching for the phone and ask what you are about to avoid. Notice when you are defending a choice that is draining you and ask whether the defense is wisdom or habit. Notice when you are running toward something and ask whether you are running toward it or away from something else. That noticing is the beginning of everything. It is the first crack in the wall, the moment when the invisible becomes visible, and once you can see it, it can no longer pretend to be fate. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who spent the first half of his life as a literal slave, said this: "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." But I would add something to that. He is a free person who understands the difference between what was given to them and what they have genuinely chosen, who has sat in silence long enough to hear their own voice beneath the noise, who has looked at the structure with clear eyes and decided, consciously, deliberately, for themselves, which parts are worth carrying forward and which have simply been running on autopilot. The greatest prison is the one you cannot see, but you have seen it now. And seeing it, truly seeing it, means you are already on your way out. The path is not comfortable, it is not fast, but it is yours. And a life that is genuinely yours, however difficult, however uncertain, is the only life worth the name. If this opened something in you, leave it in the comments. Not what you plan to do, what you saw, what you recognized in yourself that you have never said out loud before. That recognition, shared, becomes something more powerful than either of us could produce alone. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper. The next video continues this thread further into what genuine freedom actually looks like in the daily structure of an ordinary life. I'll see you there.